And when we first started the show, I really thought we were doing a show about building cars and motorcycles for people. It evolved into a show about people and their story. It really brought challenges in the early days.
Behind every success story at Count's Kustoms, there were people Danny Coker leaned on to get there. But some betrayed that trust. Some walked away when things got rough, and none of it was fully explained on camera.
Hey, how's it going today? I'm Scott. I'm the project manager here at Count's Kustoms. I want to give you a quick tour of our buildings. Come on this way.
5 former employees left under a cloud of controversy. What really pushed them out the door? And which of those exits still haunts Danny to this day? Join us as Danny Coker reveals the 5 worst employees on Counting Cars. Before the betrayal. Everyone knows Danny Coker as the Count, the leather-clad face of Counting Cars. But before the empire, Danny was just a kid in Cleveland, Ohio. He literally grew up surrounded by engines, so it's really not much of a surprise that he came to love cars so much. While other kids were whiling away time, young Danny was either dismantling old engines in the backyard or sitting beside his father during jam sessions, learning how to keep time. His father taught him a simple principle: if you love something, build it with your hands. That philosophy would become the foundation of his empire decades later. As Danny grew, so did his obsession with cars. By his teenage years, he was restoring old Fords and Chevys just for fun, teaching himself the art of bodywork, paint, and fabrication. Just like that, what started as a hobby soon became his core identity. As the years passed, Danny opened Count's Kustoms, a modest garage tucked away in the back streets of Las Vegas. It was nothing flashy in the early days, but what came out of those doors soon caught attention across the city. Danny didn't just restore old cars, he transformed forgotten classics into masterpieces that made his reputation soar across the city. Soon, clients came from everywhere. He fixed cars for collectors, musicians, and other high achievers who wanted the Danny touch. It didn't take long before Danny's life of grease collided perfectly with the world of television. His real break came through Pawn Stars, where his sharp knowledge and no-nonsense charm made him the go-to car expert. Producers noticed, and in 2012, Counting Cars was born, a show that didn't need fake drama, because Danny's love for cars was real and impossible to fake. By season 3, it was one of the most watched automotive shows on television, built on jokes, bonds, tension, and triumph inside one Las Vegas garage. But success came with a price Danny never fully saw coming. On screen, everything looked effortless. Builds were wrapped up in 30 tidy minutes, and the crew always seemed to be having fun. The reality off-screen was completely different. It was grueling, to say the least. Sometimes parts were delayed for weeks, and some engines had to be torn down and rebuilt from scratch. Days stretched long past reasonable hours just to keep pace with Danny's relentless standard for quality. And as the cameras kept rolling, the shop stopped being a normal workspace and became a spectacle as tourists would line up outside. Fame is a strange, corrosive thing. It didn't just change how the world saw Count's Kustoms, it changed even the people inside it. Egos soon began to swell, and co-workers who'd once been friends started keeping score. Lawsuits from former employees added legal weight to a business already straining under its own success. By season 4, familiar faces started vanishing. Some disappeared quietly. Others left after loud, ugly conflict. And the show never once let the cameras linger long enough to explain why. Danny kept building and kept carrying the weight of a business, a brand, and a television empire on his own back. But not everyone around him carried that same loyalty. Some of the very people Danny trusted most would go on to betray that trust in ways that still shock fans today. And their stories, which were messy, complicated, and everything in between are the ones nobody on Counting Cars ever wanted to tell. The shop was built on trust, but trust is only as strong as the people who hold it. And the first employee tested that trust in a way nobody saw coming. Joseph Frontiera. Of every name connected to trouble at Counts Customs, none carries more weight than Joseph Frontiera. Even though he was not building or painting cars, he played a very important role at Counts Customs. He worked as the company's bookkeeper. He was the man Danny Coker had authorized to touch every dollar the business generated. Everything was fine at first. Joseph was trusted with a lot of responsibility. But over time, strange things started to happen with the shop's finances as the numbers stopped adding up. When Danny and his team looked deeper, they found that Joseph had stolen money from Counts Customs, and it wasn't a couple of $100. He had siphoned more than $75,000. What made it even worse was not that he stole, but how he stole. He used company funds to pay for a personal down payment on a Range Rover. He also paid for his own airline tickets and travel. It wasn't a mistake. He knew exactly what he was doing. He even forged Danny's signature to make everything look seamless. And when he was done, he covered up his tracks by creating fake records. He stopped submitting the shop's federal tax payments to the IRS, not because he forgot, but because the money was going elsewhere. Danny didn't immediately catch it. His team noticed it during an internal accounting review when things weren't adding up across multiple account categories. When Danny and his team investigated Joseph directly, they discovered he had a documented history of embezzlement and financial fraud with a previous employer in Florida. That history was in the records of the Randstad agency, which recommended Joseph to Counts Customs. But they didn't disclose it. Danny was furious when he found out. It would have been understandable if it were an error. But this was outright betrayal. The money that could have gone toward building, payroll, or business needs was spent on luxury items by someone who was supposed to protect the shop's finances. Even if he could produce the money on the spot, it still didn't change the fact that he betrayed the trust of the entire team by pulling a Judas on them. In 2016, Counts Customs filed a civil lawsuit against both Joseph and Randstad simultaneously. The claim against Randstad was that the agency referred a candidate with a known history of gross financial misconduct for a position involving direct access to company funds and did not disclose that history. The case was quite messy, and when it went public, fans were shocked. But by that time, Joseph was already gone from the show. He had disappeared without any clear explanation. Now, viewers knew why. He had left a trail of missing money and trust issues behind him. By the end of 2019, Joseph Frontiera virtually disappeared from the public record. No social media, interviews, or automotive appearances. He has become completely unreachable. It's like he disappeared after getting caught. His actions left a lasting impact on the shop, though. After the lawsuit, Danny became more careful with who he trusted. Joseph Frontiera may not have turned wrenches or painted hot rods, but his actions caused just as much damage as any busted engine, if not worse. Joseph's theft was bad enough, but the next employee would cause even bigger headaches in a completely different way. Scott Jones. Before Counting Cars became a hit, Scott Jones was already inside the walls of Counts Customs, running the books and managing the shop floor. He was hired to keep the numbers straight and the operation moving. For the first 2 seasons, that's exactly what he did. And viewers got a front row seat to a guy who had zero problem going toe-to-toe with his boss when a decision didn't sit right with him. Danny had big dreams for the builds and sometimes wanted to push the limits. Scott was there to keep costs down, remind the crew about the budget, and make sure business came first. That willingness to push back made Scott a fan favorite early on, but it also made him a headache. Some fans found the back and forth funny. Others thought it created a real divide. The two clearly had different styles, and that showed in almost every episode during the first 2 seasons. But then, after season 2, Scott disappeared. In one episode, he was there, and in the next, the shop ran without him. Fans noticed immediately, and it wasn't because Scott was beloved. It was because his absence changed the reality of what they were watching. The arguments disappeared, the budget conversations vanished, and the show got smoother and less honest. As expected, rumors began to spread online. Some people claimed he was fired for financial mismanagement. Others thought there was a deeper conflict behind the scenes. None of those claims were ever proven, and the fact that the show never addressed the exit clearly didn't help matters. The truth is actually much simpler. Scott Jones left Las Vegas because he chose to, a personal decision to be closer to his family in Tennessee that had nothing to do with the show, the shop, or Danny Coker. Since then, Scott has kept busy. He opened Kicker's Extreme Automotive in Tennessee. He even appeared on Netflix's Swap Shop, another show that focuses on cars and collectibles. While he may not be part of Counting Cars anymore, he is still doing what he loves, working with vehicles and keeping things running smoothly. Since the exit, Danny has never publicly addressed it. The show moved forward, and whatever Scott meant to the operation stayed between the two of them. The next departure broke the hearts of fans who thought they knew exactly who this man was. Rolly Sabo. Rolly Sabo was there from the very first episode. As the shop's detailer, his job was simple on paper, but his charm made him one of the most watchable personalities on the show. Fans loved his thick Hungarian accent and big smile. He brought life to the shop, cracking jokes, dancing around, and keeping the mood light even during long workdays. He balanced hard work with humor, and fans loved him for it. For 6 seasons, Rolly was part of the furniture. Then he wasn't. In 2017, news broke that detailing equipment had gone missing from the shop. It was not just a small tool or two. $2,000 worth of professional gear had vanished. And soon after, Rolly vanished too. Later, word spread that the missing equipment may have been tied to Rolly. Some said he took the tools and never returned. Others said he invested in the tools. So when they went missing, it was a financial hit that soured his relationship with the rest of the crew. Rolly has never confirmed either theory. The closest he's come to addressing it was a 2018 reply to a fan online, where he called the whole situation a long story, and said any return to the shop was really up to the others. That single line did more to fuel the rumors than any tabloid headline could have. Whatever happened behind closed doors, it was significant enough that Rolly walked away from a hit show and never looked back. To make matters worse, Counts Customs never made an official public statement. But given that the timing of his exit and the disappearance of the equipment seemed too much of a coincidence, fans were still shocked. Many didn't believe he could be involved in something like that. Others were simply sad to see one of their favorite cast members vanish without closure. But Rolly didn't disappear entirely. In the years since his time on the show, he has stayed in Las Vegas and opened his own business, Rock and Rolly Custom Detailing. His business has a loyal following and keeps him close to the world he knows best. Rolly's missing equipment added to Danny's trust issues with his crew. But the next departure would hurt even more, because it involved losing one of the shop's most talented builders. Shannon Aikow. Shannon Aikow was a completely different breed compared to the others on the show. He didn't crack jokes like Rolly, and he didn't argue on camera like Scott. But when it came to building custom motorcycles, Shannon was truly capable of holding his own. He was calm, kept his focus, and was insanely talented. Every line he welded and every bike he touched carried his personal stamp of quality. He was one of the true artists in the shop. As the lead motorcycle builder on Counting Cars, Shannon helped shape some of the most iconic builds on the show. His work was clean, bold, and creative. It didn't matter what he was building, Shannon always gave it his all. For the first several seasons, Shannon was consistent in a way the show never fully captured on screen. But as the show grew bigger, things started to change. By season 7, fans began to notice Shannon was appearing less and less. Some episodes barely showed him at all, and by the next season, he was mostly gone. So what happened? From what's been shared by insiders and longtime viewers, the change came down to creative differences. As Counting Cars grew more popular, the production leaned harder into drama, constructed tension, and manufactured disagreements. Sure, that helped boost ratings, but it didn't sit well with everyone, especially someone like Shannon. He found himself less interested in being part of the show. There was no warning before his departure. Danny knew what was happening, but he did not ask Shannon to change how he worked or how he presented on camera. The producers simply made the show move around him until the gap between what Shannon was known to do and what the show needed him to do became impossible to bridge. And instead of complaining or causing a stir, Shannon made a different choice. He stepped away, just as quietly as he had always worked. As of 2026, Shannon is still building motorcycles in Las Vegas. Danny lost the best motorcycle builder on his floor because the version of Counting Cars the network wanted had no room for someone who just showed up and built. And Shannon, rather than adapt to what the show had become, simply walked. Shannon proved a quiet exit could still leave a mark. But the final name on this list wasn't quiet at all. Mike Henry. Every long-running reality show has a character the audience either adores or can't stand. And on Counting Cars, that role belonged to Mike Henry, better known as Horny Mike. He arrived wearing a horned helmet and carrying a portfolio that justified every bit of the attention his appearance demanded. He airbrushed horns onto anything that could hold paint. He worked as the lead airbrush artist at Counts Customs, turning cars, bikes, and helmets into one-of-a-kind masterpieces. While other crew members handled mechanics and bodywork, Mike brought the final magic touch. With flames, skulls, murals, and metallic fades, his work could transform a simple car into something unforgettable. Mike had a background in custom paint and 3D sculpting before joining the shop. Danny gave him room to express himself, and for the early seasons, the partnership worked because both men wanted the same result. The positive tension between them produced some of the most visually striking cars the shop ever put on screen. Still, working inside a business like Counts Customs and under the eye of television cameras was not always easy. Mike had strong opinions. His ideas were bold, sometimes a little too bold for what Danny had in mind. Mike wanted more freedom to push boundaries. Danny, as the shop's owner, had to protect the brand and keep everything on message. That was the beginning of creative tension. Over time, the show stopped building segments around Mike's process. Episodes that once showed the sketch, the underpainting, and the layering began cutting directly to the finished car. Mike still helped with big projects, but he wasn't always at the center of the action like before. He went from featured artist to background contributor to making only occasional appearances, not through any single decision, but through the accumulated weight of a schedule that had stopped making room for him. He stopped appearing in every episode, and even when he did show up, his role seemed smaller. Fans noticed the change. Many wondered if something had gone wrong. Some thought he had left the shop. But the truth was more complicated. Mike didn't leave in anger. He didn't get fired. He just started focusing on his own path. Today, Mike runs his own business, Horny Mike Designs. He creates custom airbrushed art, helmets, and accessories. He still works on bikes and cars, but now under his own brand. He makes appearances at car shows, fan events, and even other TV spots. He is still very active in the world of custom design. Danny never found a direct replacement, and the difference was visible to anyone who had been watching long enough. The shop kept producing builds, but none of them looked like Mike Henry had been anywhere near them. Even though he moved more into his own space, Mike still keeps a connection with Counts Customs. He's not fully gone. He still pops in for special projects and helps when needed. There's no bad blood, just a shift in focus. In the end, it wasn't broken engines or impossible deadlines that tested Counting Cars the most. It was the very people who made up the show. Some earned Danny's trust only to betray it, while others chose to walk away when the spotlight no longer matched their passion. But each of them, in their own ways, left a lasting impact. Which of these employees caused the most damage? And is Counting Cars the same without their presence? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.